So, this came out of my last track, Rising, that's the one, and it basically uses the sound from, well, it uses growl 1, which you may recognise from my lyrics of Resolve by Seamless. But of course it does sound different when you listen to it. It just sounds different. And I'm just going to show you the massive process of resampling, if I use the term correctly, which got me to the final sound. So, to make this exactly as I have it, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need this wonderful thing, lots of them, although you only have to buy it once, obviously, but you'll be surprised. This thing is probably one of the most important things. So without that, you're kind of stuffed. Any old filter, and this. So this is FMFX, and I think that's it really. Yeah, that's it. So firstly, we'll have a look at the original sound. So this is without anything on. A bit boring. And then, so yeah, I've turned on the effects. Yeah, I'm using that. Actually, that won't work. Okay. And then there is, of course, this, but this isn't going to work because, yeah, it doesn't do anything. And it glitches out occasionally. But I bounced it down to audio. Is what I did this at the time, and this is what that sounds like. So that's with the CamelPhat on. Well, and these things. If I turn these off, this is what you're actually getting at the end of the last one. And then you just stick on all these things again, and that gets you to this. So it's the same, but it's got a bit more bass, probably because of this filter adding some mids. Probably due to some, I don't know, that's actually adding treble, I'm not even sure. And possibly these, because I use a lot of these, but all the colours have been brought down to like 30%. And generally the trick is to use lots of them in small amounts. So yeah, I mean you saw on the last track actually that I used 3 of them, each of them that was at 5%. This one is at 3%. This one's at 6%. I actually just moved them up there, but and then I did it again. These on slightly more, a lot more, about 13% and 15%. And then the filter and the FMFX, and then I bounce it down to audio one last time, and that gets me this, which sounds a bit weedy again. And the important thing is you can see it's been chopped up a bit, and if I play them side by side, well, I'm not going to, but you see if I zoom in to here, this bit here, let's put a loop over that. You'll see on the top track, which is the final version, it's half the length and it sounds different as well. So the top one is like that, and the bottom one is louder because I've turned all the effects off. But that's because when I added on the original sound on the CamelPhat, I used automation on the bandpass filter. And the bandpass filter is what I think it picks which frequencies the actual distortion acts upon. So you'll see on here I used a flanger, quite a lot of it, compressor, some filter, but I don't think it's doing much, and some distortion, most importantly. And it's actually just a preset which I tweaked, and then linked the channels, and then automated the bandpass frequency. And you'll see underneath this bit, it kind of like rises up and then goes down again. And that's what gives the weird sound I didn't like. The wow. It kind of, you can kind of hear the more treble go in and then go out again. I didn't like that, so instead I just copied across, I think it's this bit here. No, it's this bit here. I copied that one straight across into here because I preferred the sound of it. And that's all the changes I actually made to the layout of it, and then I just added yet more of these. And these ones are on 22% and 14%. And then again, another FMate effects. I don't know what they're all doing because they're all the same. Yeah, more. I think it's more overdrive, showing EQ, and phaser. I just keep adding them on, and then another filter doing very little, and then that adds some more bass to it again. Just gives it a bit more meat. No pun intended. Yep. And then that's the bass, and then the last thing I did to it was I whizzed down to here, and this is the final track, the one I showed you earlier. All this has on it is, all I actually had it for was just as a master thing, so I could have all the basses on one track, just in case I wanted to export it and chop it up again or something. And I just put one last one of these on because I like these, they're just so useful. Colour at 43%. And it's worth noting that although if you use one Sausage Fattener with it colour on full, you get a good sound. If you can use multiple ones, don't, because what you get is this incredibly horrible treble. So just don't do that. So instead put them all about 40, or if you're using more in one go, probably more like 20 or yeah. And of course if you're using loads, put the fatness down as well. And just make sure you're careful about where you put the colour on it, because otherwise you just get this horrible high-end white noise almost, where it's just distorting its... Because when you distort high-end stuff, it generally adds more harmonics in. Because if you're high-end, you haven't got much more harmonics you can add in from there. So you just get a load of buzzing and horrible stuff. So if you bring the colour down, it stops happening, and it distorts the low end. And as a side note on that, that's actually the reason why we use more than one. Because if you just use one load of distortion, you distort the original sound, and that's it. But if you're putting on loads on top of each other, you're distorting the one before. So you're putting distortion on distortion. And that's why it sounds so bad, actually, if you add more than one, because you're adding distortion on high-end distortion on high-end distortion. Which, even just listening to me read out how many of them there are, you know it's not going to sound good, and it doesn't. So, yeah, it took a long time to explain, just something very simple. And that's that sound. And then, if we whiz along to part 2 of the drop, we get to another interesting sound. I just need to find it now. Okay, yeah. This sound, the drop's split into 2, as you may have picked up just there. Part 1 is the one you just heard, really, and then part 2 it sounds like this. So part 2 is using the same sounds, actually. I mean, I didn't make anything new using the original preset, which, in case you're interested, I haven't really done this in order, I realise, is actually growl 1. I've said that, actually. But anyway, what I was going to say is that I used a phaser here. Okay, so what I did, I took the original sound, which is this, and I put on FMate effects. And on there, I've got the effects section, and put on the phaser. The phaser is the interesting bit here. That's what's giving it the ooh-ah, ooh-ah kind of sound. And of course, from my lovely impression there, you hear that I went ooh-ah, ooh-ah, and that went ooh-ah, ah-ooh. And that's not what you hear in the final song. And that's because I didn't like the... so all I did, after all those effects again, I bounced that down once more to another audio file, which is what I am, an audio file, and put some yet more on that, and this time I chopped it, so I only took the beginning bit. And that's the sound you hear in the final one. Apart from that, you got it again down here. And that's all I want to say. Though I will go over all the other stuff in here too. There's the Bumblebee from Vengeance, which by itself sounds like, and I will bring that up quickly for you again. It's the crude, remember the crude wavetail I went on about on the last version of this, as in the one I did on Vengeance. And all I've done on top of that was put these again, because they're very useful. I don't know how I managed without them. The stuff I have the good old Scream, which has got a sidechain curve on it run by Performer 7, no, Performer 8, and that's got that kind of downward curve. And Performer 7 is what does the anyway, I'll stop now. And there was the distortion again, and some more high end, and that's that. There was the good old laser, which is, you know, that chiptune sound I always use, which is like just a blip, sounds like a square wave. That's this. It's just that this has got a bit of an attack to the pitch, run by Performer, because I love Performers. And if you just speed this up, so so that's the sound there, and what I did on top of that is I stuck some more distortion. A compressor that doesn't do anything other than turn it down, which is the general idea, and then some more high end, and that's that. Then I got these two pads, they don't place at the same time. That's one. The other one isn't sidechained like that. And then, I don't know if there's anything else. There's this kind of like a sub, but it's a saw wave sub. I call it a killer saw, because the wave isn't just a sawtooth, it's like, wait, it's just, it's like a sawtooth, but it's like brought into a certain shape that gives it a really clicky feel. Because sawtooth is boring, and then I just put some like sub reinforcement under it. And yeah, then there's the ordinary sub. There's, what's this? Oh yeah, this is cool. Oh yeah, and that's in my pack of massive presets. If anyone wants to have a look at that, and it's this. So copy across now. Time's up. And then lastly, what comes in as the synths. And that's the sound that comes in the second half. And it is basically just a square wave, and there's nothing more to it than that. There's two of them, one's up an octave and at a low volume, and then there's a low pass doing something, but that's doing very little. This is not the low pass, so this is the what brings it in. And guess what? Okay, and that's the intro. That's everything you want to know. Not the intro, that's the drop. Moving on to the intro, and there's very little I want to show you in the intro. To find it now, that one. This is the intro. When it loads, which will take a while because the files sizes are absolutely massive. No pun intended again. And the reason the file size is so large is because of the sheer amount of tracks on them. Note the scroll bar when it loads. And that's why I split the project into two, because if you don't do that, the CPU explodes. don't take that literally. Okay, here we are. I think there are 52 tracks in this thing. I'm not going to count. But what was I going to show you? Oh yeah. Now this was the sound, which it's the standard. That was loud. But it's altered. So if you go into massive now, it's slow already. Go into the routing. Okay. Now compare. You see on this routing you've got insert 1 after the filter and insert 2 when they join together. Okay. Now we go into here. Insert 1 is now before the filter and insert 2 is now after the filter. And that's quite an important thing. So let's go onto the massive standalone. That's the original sound. Now let's move it to how it was. So, clear difference there, and it sounds kind of a lot. I'm not going to say fatter, but it's got a lot more. Well, it's got a lot less treble to it, and more kind of like mid. But when I've added everything else on, like this FM8 effects, which is doing a phaser, a flanger, and a delay, more of this, and a filter, you get this kind of like. So you get kind of like this throaty, kind of like shout, growl, roar. I'm not really sure what to call it. I actually layered that killer saw thing underneath again, just for good measure. But this sound, it's literally the same as the other thing. I'm still trying to find a difference between them. Let's have a look, shall we? Any differences? None at all. Except there's an insert 2 is no longer a frequency shift, it's actually another sine shaper. So if you're going to change anything, change that. Because if I do it without, it doesn't make much difference. But anyway, just put it on anyway, just because why not? And that's actually all I want to show you, other than just take a look around the track. And in case you're interested, all of the plucky things were made in Silent 1, which I will open. They're all made in Silent 1, which is absolutely brilliant if you're a house producer. I mean, if you are, I don't quite know why you've reached this stage in the video, because there wasn't really much housey stuff in this. But this sound is the plucky hit. Which is that. And there's 3 of them. And then there's the Jaws theme, which we all love. Skip ahead of it. And this lovely reverse piano. And that's it. That's all I want to show you. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe. And I'll see you next time in another video, whatever that will be about. So enjoy. Make sure you check out the original track of this. It's called Rising. It's on YouTube. It's on SoundCloud. It's actually on Facebook as well, so direct yourself to any of them, and goodbye.